is the best way to sew on your binding to make it look real good. You just need a serger and a home sewing machine. You do not need the binding attachment. First, you need your bias strip. To get the width that I just showed you, you want your binding to be 1 1/4 inch. Next, you want the right sides to face each other and you're going to serge them together. But make sure the binding is on top. This is because you're going to pull the binding just a little bit as you're serging. So if you don't pull the binding, the end result will not lay flat. Let me show you real quick. So this is the front. You already saw it looks great. However, when I did the back, right here, you can see that it's like protruding out just a little bit. I probably should have pulled just a little bit more. However, the good thing about knits is when she puts it on and it stretches out, you probably won't even be able to see it. Oh, also, it depends on what you're sewing if you need to stretch it. I'd say anything that's round or curved. Arms, legs, necks, that sort of thing. Onto the home sewing machine. Again, make sure the binding is facing up. When I sew, I put it at the 3/8 mark. And make sure your settings are on stretch. Now, because we pulled the binding just a little bit when we sewed it on, it's gonna be a little like wrinkly, or I guess you would say gathered. So when you're sewing, you need to pull it just a little bit and make sure that you smooth it out. So make sure it's even, smooth it out, and that there's no wrinkles or gathers. But make sure you're not actually stretching it like we did earlier. And this is what it will look like. Next, you're going to take the excess of the binding and wrap it around the seam. Ideally, you're going to want to pin all of the binding, but I hate this step and I've learned how to do it without pinning it. So it is totally up to you. If you did use pins, make sure you take them out, don't sew over them. When I sew without the pins, I wrap the binding around the seam, I pinch it, and then I sew up to my finger, and then I do it all over again. And you'll really be able to see here in a second that I try to get that binding as tight as I can around that edge. Then I sew about 1/8 inch away from the seam. And now we just did a beautiful binding. And of course, follow for more tips.